So today is May 6th and we're still here at camp for a couple more days. COVID-19 is still all the rage, and that is what we want to talk to you about in this video today. But first, it is so nice outside that we are going to go for a walk, so let's go. Down to the beach all right, but the wind is so fierce, it's even more fierce than COVID-19. So we are just sheltering in place down here behind this log to have a little break before hiking back up to camp. Man, I couldn't even hardly get some gimbal shots because of the wind, and forget about flying the drone. So I hope you enjoyed the walk with us, but we're gonna head back up to camp and share some of our thoughts about COVID-19 with you. Okay, so here we are back at camp. Got a kombucha, not drinking alcohol tonight, but we are sheltering in place, as you can see. But we were not sheltering in place walking along the beach. Now, I have some pretty strong opinions about COVID-19 and the reactions by the government, politicians, etc. So I actually don't agree with the shelter in place thing fundamentally. And so we're going to get into that and some other pretty strong points. But right off the bat, I just want to say that Tracy and me are two different people and we have differing opinions on this subject. Mine tend to be a bit on the stronger side and hers a little bit more fluid. So the first thing I want to say from my point of view is that intuition plays a big part in how I perceive the world. So I've come to get in touch with my intuition and learn to trust it over the years. So this whole COVID-19 thing and the way it's been handled, it doesn't sit well with me on the intuitive level. So I do watch some news and formulate some opinions based on things I hear. But first and foremost, it's my gut level intuition. But then beyond that, it's on the heart level. So my gut and my heart really lead my decision making. So sheltering in place, I just don't agree with it for a few reasons. First of all, I don't think that there's actually enough solid data in to justify these lockdowns and house arrest, because that's what it is. Shelter in place to me is just a euphemism. It's too soft. It seems like a phrase that was developed by whoever to make it sound good, to make us more likely to do it. But it's actually looking to be more like straight up lockdowns and house arrest. So as far as quarantine, house arrest, and lockdown, shelter in place goes, I'm just not down with it, and I'm just not going to do it. We happened to be out here at this beautiful wilderness spot when this whole thing went down. So our version of shelter in place, house arrest, is looking real good. Tracy, what do you think about this topic of sheltering in place house arrest?
Well, in some ways I do agree with David. I feel like the people that run our country have taken this as a huge power trip, and to continue to enforce lockdowns and make them stricter as time goes on seems counterintuitive, since from the data that we've been seeing, the numbers are definitely not as high as they had anticipated, and the severity of it, like the death rate, is much lower than anticipated. And so it just seems really strange that as it goes on, the lockdowns, at least here in California, have gotten stricter, and now they've made masks mandatory to wear in public. So it just seems a little odd, and we're definitely tuning into a lot of information from all different sources, trying to get a well-rounded vision of what's going on in our country right now, and really not giving into the fear aspect, which is what we see in society a lot.
This whole mandate that's coming from the top down, telling us that we have to stay in our own homes for weeks, months, in some cases indefinitely, that's pretty hardcore and causes a little bit too much fear. It's like a toxic mimic of like surrogate parents trying to keep us away from danger or the perceived threat of danger. They're telling us, don't go outside, there's bacteria and viruses, and don't touch people and stay 6,000 feet away. When parents try and overprotect their children and keep them away from anything dirty so they can be safe, it's for their own safety, right? That's what they're telling us. Well, then the infant in that case doesn't get to interface with dirt and bacteria in the wilderness, and I think it's pretty well established at this point that will have bad effects on the child growing up later in life. And the masks as well, the hyper-sterilization of infants and this toxic mimic of them trying to hyper-sterilize us, that will never work. Stay away, wear a mask. And so I will not shelter in place, and I will not wear a mask. One of the reasons why I don't believe wearing a mask does us any good at all, in fact, more harm than good, is because wearing a mask over our mouths reduces the amount of oxygen that we get into our systems, and it's well established at this point from a health standpoint that the more oxygen we can get into our systems, the healthier we are. The less oxygen we get into our systems, the worse off we are. That's just, to me, really common sense. From a human relating communication standpoint, it makes it really difficult and awkward to interface with other people. So the connection and communication that would otherwise take place and has for many thousands of years is now just being really, in a way, retarded, because it's just preventing us from really connecting and communicating with each other. And I think that does us a huge disservice as well. That's just a couple of points off the top of my head that I can think of for the mask situation. I'm not going to wear them, but Tracy, she's more fluid and open into her interpretation of this. So what do you think?
I definitely don't love wearing the masks. I would rather not.
I'm really grateful for Tracy too, because she will wear a face covering, but I won't. So when we go occasionally to the store to go grocery shopping, she will go inside so I don't have to. So yeah. I really appreciate that.
He would basically starve right now if it weren't for me, because he refuses to wear a mask. And now they've made it mandatory in public, in any store you're going to go into, you have to wear a mask. And there's people enforcing it. Now, I know that this whole mask wearing thing is a touchy subject for a lot of people, but I can't help but when I look out and seeing everyone wearing masks, it's like so many other things that I see in society that look almost like a herd mentality, where we humans will see other people doing something, so they'll just think it's okay and do it themselves. But when I get right down to it, this whole coronavirus thing, I'm not actually convinced that it even exists. Now, I know that that's pretty controversial because the mainstream media is telling us that it's a real thing, but I'm not sold on it, and I'm not convinced that it even exists. Like, for example, the origin of this COVID-19, they say came from China, from a wet market. In a way, it's almost like trying to make them look really bad for having wet markets. But like so many other things I'm seeing, it's this blaming and shaming thing. The wet markets, are they as bad as factory farming that we have in the United States and other parts of the world? That nightmarish cruelty to animals
in the mega agricultural factory farming situation, that's a nightmare. This COVID-19 thing, one of the silver linings in it could turn the mirror on ourselves. We have that opportunity. Instead of saying, wet markets are bad, you're bad, and all of this pointing fingers, let's just say, hey, and adopt some humility and say, we're not perfect either. In fact, we've fucked up quite a bit. I have in my own life. United States has. We all have. Every country has. I'm going to choose to move through this with humility, and I don't think that coronavirus actually even exists, to be honest with you. So there's that. But Tracy does.
Yeah, I don't have enough information about anything, basically. So I'm still very open to all aspects and all opinions. I believe there is something that's making people sick, and people are getting very ill, and a lot of people are describing it as the same chest pressure pain and coughing really intensely, feels like razor blades. So I've heard the same scenario enough that I believe something is going around. I don't believe that it's something that anybody should fear, or it's not something that I'm fearing, that's for sure. And because I just don't live my life in fear, and I really think that more people just need to stay in love. There's a lot of people taking sides right now. It really feels like we're divided as a country, and that's a really huge shame because we need to come together now more than ever.
Proceed with love. If we can learn to just tune into our hearts will guide us forward today, tomorrow, and into the future. That being said, we can't just rely on our hearts. Our brains are very powerful too. So we got to put our thinking caps on, and I'm doing my best to do that in my part. So one of the ways that I'm engaging my brain with this whole thing is I'm detached, and I'm observing the whole thing. And I see this as like a magic trick, like a sleight of hand. Now, in my adult life, from what I've paid attention to in governments and corporations, thinking back to even major catastrophes like 9/11, I don't believe in the mainstream narrative for 9/11, and I don't believe in the mainstream narrative from corporations and governments now. So I just intuitively don't trust them, and there's actually a lot of data to back up why, oftentimes they're lying and they're hypocrites, and I still love them for who they are. They're just fucking up, And so I see this as a big magic trick. It's a sleight of hand, and one of the tools that magicians use for magic tricks is distraction. And so they're distracting us with so much information that while we're looking over here, they're doing something over here. But there's one more point that I want to make about this, and it's the big perspective, because one thing that I've learned in life is that perspective is key in situations. So my meta perspective about COVID-19 is that it is the latest and greatest iteration in the conquest, which has been ongoing for thousands of years. Some 10,000 years ago, that was like the dawn of agricultural sedentary civilization. And before that was the whole stretch of like hunter-gatherer societies for humans. That whole time, some 10,000 years, has been a conquest on wildness. So it was the Crusades and the Christians and the killing and the taking of lands and peoples and lifeways and all of that stuff. The whole point is to eliminate wildness because it threatens the structure of domestic civilization. Anything wild does not fit in their domestic program. So this domesticated civilization that we're living in, the direction that it's been going in really needs to clear cut forests and take away the rights of people. And so now here we are, a lot of our rights are being taken away, like freedom of speech, the right to assembly, and all of that. you can't even, in some cases, think and say what you really believe without sometimes serious repercussions, punishment for free thinking, free feeling, free acting. Now, that freedom inside of us, when it's expressed outwardly, that is an act of wildness. And so I see that these powers that be, they really want to suppress those actions of wildness. And it's kind of scary, but to put it into an optimistic perspective, there's a great opportunity for us there to really stand up and to figure out who we are more and act in accordance from that place. But in closing, Tracy, is there any final points you want to make on this?
Yeah, kind of dovetailing on what David has to say, I think this is a really unique opportunity that we have seen our impacts on the planet. Most of the world has been locked down, and so we've seen nature kind of take over again, and skies clear up, water run clean. So this is just a really good opportunity for us to really think about our impacts, maybe think about our choices, think about what companies we're supporting, think about your purchases, and really, as we do start to open up again, really think about supporting small businesses, because throughout all of this, they have struggled, they've suffered, a lot of them have closed, and that's really what America is built on. I really hate to see all these large corporations thriving and then that's all we're left with are the big box stores, because that would just really break my heart. So that's kind of where I'm at with all this, and just really staying optimistic, and we're gonna get through this.
Yes, gotta stay optimistic, because a pessimistic attitude is just unproductive at best right now. So we are holding that space in our microclimate and out there into the world for you as well. We're in such a beautiful place, and I know there's a lot of points I didn't talk about in this, but we've got plenty of other videos coming where we'll talk about other things. But it's like we were down at the beach, and nature is just such a beautiful place to be in, and healthy for humans as well too. So it just breaks my heart that so many people are being told to stay inside, and then they acquiesce and just say, okay, I'll stay inside. It just breaks my heart that so many people are suffering inside when they could and maybe should be outside. So
it's also really good for your health, but we're going to go into that in the next one.
Yeah, the next video we're going to show you some of the ways that we like to stay healthy, some of the daily regular habits that we practice in our lives to stay healthy. So this video is a bit more about some of those hard-hitting points about COVID-19. Tomorrow's going to be a little bit more lighthearted. We're going to play around with some stuff around here. I think you're going to dig it. So thank you for tuning into this video. If you have any questions or comments or even opinions about COVID-19 or what's going on in your life, how you're being affected, please reach out in the comments. I will be reading them. I will be responding to them. I would love for this to be an ongoing conversation that is productive and mutually beneficial. So that's it for this video. We're going to go make some dinner, get a good night's rest, because that's one of the things, and we'll see you in the next video.